The NFL owners, the group of owners, have just voted in favor of allowing private equity firms to have ownerships in parts of the league's teams. They had a meeting today out in Minneapolis, and they just had the vote. So this would allow at least portions of teams to be owned by these firms rather than just individuals, which is the way it's been for forever, right? So what does it mean? We have media executive, investment banker Mark Patricof joining us right now. Mark's firm, his clients of his firm include a number of well-known professional athletes, and been wanting to have you on the show. This is a great reason to have you on, Mark. So thanks for doing this. So I said, this is a really interesting topic because, first of all, just to set it up, this is allowed, right, in other sports, but the NFL has always been old school. It's kind of like this old boys club, right? So this is kind of a big kind of a leap for them.
It has been allowed. Yeah, it has been allowed over the last, I don't know, what it is, dozen or so years, and you've seen the growth in those other leagues, and I think it definitely correlates to more money, institutional money coming in and funding growth in all kinds of ways, not just the teams themselves, but the arenas, the practice facilities, many different kind of aspects of the sports, which have become multi-billion-dollar businesses, these teams.
So there's a couple of questions here. The common person or fan watching at home is, oh, why do I care about this? And you know what? Maybe they don't. But I think there are a few reasons that make it really interesting, and one of the reasons that they might. Number one, valuations and all that, and what the effect will be, I want to ask you about. But number two, I mentioned your firm represents these athletes, a lot of athletes, former athletes. Could one of them, is Joe Burrow, the quarterback, still a client of yours, right?
He certainly is. Yeah.
Okay, so a guy like that, young guy's making a ton of money, could he end up now being more likely when he stops playing, or someone like him, to be an owner? Because maybe he teams up with one of the private equity firms, or how do you see this all playing out?
The question is not so much would he or could he become an owner after he plays. The question is, as you see these athletes now making hundreds of millions of dollars, and they have good, responsible wealth managers, they have people like us who help them focus on private investments. There's an opportunity or a possibility that a Joe Burrow might invest in a Carlisle or an Ares through his wealth manager, and that fund may end up buying a piece of one of these teams. So it's going to be complicated.
You'll have to have rules that kind of prevent that, right? Or curb that to some extent?
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to kind of anticipate every possible, chain of events that could happen. But for sure, these athletes are well positioned down the road to be meaningful owners. If you make $500 million before you're 30, you should be able to turn them into multiple billions of dollars down the road.
But in the end, that wouldn't have been enough to buy a team, right? Like the way these teams are now.
It might have been a few years ago. I mean,
right. But now
Eagles are trying to sell a stake at a $7 billion valuation.
Crazy.
I mean, they aren't liquid enough to own assets like that. And by the way, you mentioned about the players or what's in it for the fans.
Yep.
If you're a Cleveland Brown fan, you had to have an owner who could put $240 million in escrow to sign Deshaun Watson. Those numbers are just going to go up and up. So the fans will benefit. I think the question is more about what happens down the road. How does the league change with institutional ownership being part of the mix?
And how do you think it will? I mean, does it, for example, does it make the teams probably, there's evaluations, which we talked about, which have been go up even more? What types of changes should we think about?
Well, you have to assume if an NFL team is owned by an institutional investor, they're expecting to 1.5 or 2 or 2.5 times their money. So now we're talking about valuations in excess of $10 billion. There won't be enough individuals out in the world who can afford to buy stakes in those teams at those prices. So I think we're seeing a trend that will begin towards thinking about how does a private equity fund exit? Well, the public markets seem to be the most obvious next step. And that will, again, radically change the league in all sorts of ways. So,
yeah, I think about like the Green Bay Packers had stock traded, but that's not the same thing as what you would be talking about. I mean, that's kind of just like a token of, so someone can have a certificate, right? But you're talking about real publicly traded teams. Like they have that in, like Man United in, in soccer.
For sure. I mean, there's just no other way to project out ahead who's going to be able to afford valuations of those levels. Also, if you think about it, the importance of community representation, minority representation, I think is critical. More than half the league is non-white. So I think you'll be able to see, instead of it being just purely on the ownership level, it might be at the board level. So you'll see boards of directors for these teams, something that never has happened in the past, where you had one single person having an incredible amount of control over an asset that might be worth, now we see $5+ billion. And they were family businesses. Large part of the reason why some of these owners, whether it's Mark Davis or, Jerry Jones even, have, 80, 90, 100, 95% of their net worth tied up in an illiquid asset. So creating some liquidity allows them to build new.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.